நன்றி.
எல்லாருக்கும் வணக்கம். இப்போ வெளியே பார்த்த புகைப்படமே ஒரு கதையை தாங்கி இருக்கிற புகைப்படமாக இருக்குது. நம்ம சமூகத்தில் இன்றைய சூழல் என்னவாக இருக்குது, அந்த பகுதி என்னவாக இருக்குன்றது ஒரு ஃபோட்டோகிராஃபை பற்றி டெக்னிக்கலாக பேசுகிறதுக்கான நாலேஜ் இல்லை. பட் அது நமக்குள்ளே ஏற்படுத்துகிற உணர்வை பற்றி பேசுகிறதுக்கும் அதன் வாயிலாக நமக்கு ஏற்படுற புரிதலை பற்றி பேசுகிற அளவுக்கு மட்டும்தான் எனக்கு தெரியும் ஃபோட்டோகிராஃபி. ஸோ அந்த அடிப்படையில் இது பார்த்த அந்த புகைப்படங்கள், அது சொல்கிற கதைகள், அது எல்லாமே நமக்கு ஏற்கனவே நிகழ்ந்த அழிவுகளை பற்றி மட்டும் சொல்லலை. நாம் இன்னும் எவ்வளோ கவனமாக இருக்கணும், நாம் அடுத்த தலைமுறைக்கிட்டேருந்து தலைமுறைக்கு இந்த இருக்கிற கொஞ்சம் நஞ்சமான விஷயங்களை காப்பாற்றி கொடுக்கறதுக்கு நாம் இன்னும் எவ்வளோ கவனமாக இருக்கணும், இன்னும் எவ்வளோ எல்லாரும் நம்மளால் முடிஞ்ச அளவுக்கு ஒர்க் பண்ணுறதை சொல்லக்கூடிய புகைப்படங்களாக இருக்குது. அந்த அடிப்படையில் ஒரு ரொம்ப ஒரு ஸ்பெஷலான ஒர்க் அப்படின்னு தான் நான் அதை பார்க்குறேன். ஏன்னா அதில் அவர் எக்ஸ்பிளைன் பண்ணிட்டு வந்தார், அது நான் என்னென்ன காரணங்களுக்காக இதை எடுத்திருக்கேன், இதன் மூலமாக என்னென்னலாம் எனக்கு தோணுதுன்னு. அவர் அது கடைசி அவர் முடிக்கும் போது எப்படி சொல்லி முடித்தார்னா, எனக்கு எந்த நம்பிக்கையுமே வரல, இதில் என்ன இந்த இடத்துல எனக்கு பெரிய நம்பிக்கைகள் தெரியல இதில் அப்படின்னு சொல்லி சொன்னார். பட் எனக்கு என்ன தோணுச்சுன்னா, இந்த புகைப்படங்களின் வாயிலாக அந்த கதைகளை நாம் சொல்கிறதே ஒரு நம்பிக்கைக்குரிய விஷயமா இருக்குது. தொடர்ந்து கதைகள் சொல்வதன் மூலமாக எந்த வாயிலாகவோ மக்களுக்கு கதைகளை சொல்வதன் மூலமாக கண்டிப்பாக மாற்றம் வரும்ன்ற நம்பிக்கை எனக்கு இருக்குது. நல்லதற்கான மாற்றம் வரும், மக்களுக்கான மாற்றம் கண்டிப்பாக வரும்ன்ற நம்பிக்கை எனக்கு. நன்றி.
மிக்க நன்றி. இப்போ ஐ ரிக்வெஸ்ட் காம்ரேட் ஜெயந்தி goes to address the gathering.
Thank you so much. I feel so honored to be part of. Yeah.
ஜெயந்தி கோஷ் அவர்களுக்கு நினைவு பரிசு வழங்குவதற்காக வெற்றி செல்வன் அவர்களை அழைக்கிறேன்.
I think Vetri was talking quite a bit about the alpha male, and he was talking about how class difference affects people when disasters come in, happen and stuff like that. We all know that gender is a social construct, and we know that it's perhaps one of the most complex social science concepts that's around, and it's a concept that assigns different roles for men and women, and it basically determines what is expected from men and women in each circumstance or a context very differently. So what is permitted for a man may not be permitted for a woman. What is expected of a man may not be expected of a woman. A quality that's valued in a man may not be valued in a woman. So it just in the same context also, men and women and persons of other gender are actually treated differently, very differently. So we all know that this whole concept is based on power structures, and it breeds a lot, as Vetri was clearly saying, it breeds inequality, it breeds hierarchies, it breeds basically violations, and ultimately, of course, injustice. And we all know that again, International Women's Day, we began celebrating this in the 1900s, early 1900s, and this was also very closely, the whole celebration or the beginning of the International Women's Day was clearly linked to basically economic rights of women. One knows that it began in 1910 at a International Conference of Working Women. International Conference for Working Women, which was held in Copenhagen, which was basically attended by more than 100 women from across 17 countries. And there we saw that there was this leader of the Social Democratic Party in Germany. Her name was Clara Zetkin. She basically proposed that we should start observing something like an International Women's Day to kind of highlight the issues that women face worldwide. And her proposal was basically unanimously accepted by the meeting. And from the next year onwards, this International Women's Day came to be celebrated across countries. This continued in different dates. Later on, it was kind of said that according to the Gregorian calendar, we'll do it on the 8th of March. And then in 1975, the UN also kind of approved this as a day that can be celebrated and should be celebrated across the world. So we've seen that over the years, we've seen that International Women's Day has been celebrated across countries, regions, even now we see it even locally being celebrated. And so I think and this was, though it began with demand for voting rights, demand for women and their working conditions, these were all something that was very key for the initial few, that when the Industrial Revolution was there and women were made to do work in very poor working conditions. So at that time the whole, I think the whole fight was for economic benefits and equal rights for women. We did come a long way over the years, I would say. We all proudly say that we have voting rights. We do have a labor code that says that you have to work for 8 hours. Of course, I'm not talking about the unorganized sector here, but of course, at least for the organized sector, there are certain. If we today, as women, can claim maternity rights, it's because of the women's movement. Women's unions who've been fighting for these rights. So we have come a long way. But as we know, though we've come a long way, we know that patriarchy is not something that goes away, something that you can wish away in a year or a couple of decades. It's something so deeply ingrained in the society and in our minds for generations. It will take a lot of time to go. That is why we know that even today, women are not paid at par with their male counterparts. We know that. Even today, violence against women exists at multiple levels, be it at the domestic level in their homes or in workplaces or in public places. So we see that, we know that the whole concept of, though we are talking about, we are still fighting for reservation, and when, for whatever reservation we do have, we've seen how, the whole concept of sarpanch patis that we call in the northern part of the country, where the woman is the elected representative and the husband or the son or the father-in-law or somebody actually takes over the the reins from her, and they are the people who actually run the whole show. So we also see these other sides. So the whole fight is still on. We of course there are lots of wins in this battle, but we are still a long way to go in that sense. Now in the midst of all of this and the caste class war fights that we talk about, because again women are not a homogeneous group of people. We know that class has an impact. Even within caste there is a sub class that exists, or a subcaste that exists, which all have an impact on marginalizations basically. So along with all these issues, along with capitalism and the challenges that it brings with it, we have the big challenge of climate change now, which is perhaps the biggest of challenges that we are facing today, which has very close links with the capitalist society and the way capitalism has been one of the major systems that has created this problem and is at the back of it, and we are looking for solutions also in the same capitalist system. So there is a need for a systemic change there. But coming back to climate change, we know that climate change definitely impacts men and women. It creates vulnerabilities, it creates inequalities, it is discriminatory in the way people have opportunities, get opportunities in disasters or in adaptation and mitigation and all of that. But even in this thing, though men and women both are impacted, we know, like Vetri was, I couldn't understand everything that Vetri said, but of course I think he did refer to how women are differently impacted by climate change. We know for sure that women are, and people of other genders, not just women, are definitely differently impacted by climate change. And we have seen that this is totally backed by a lot of data and statistics. We know that women and children are 14 times more likely to kind of die in a natural disaster. And the reasons are very, again, based on the roles, the dress codes prescribed by the society. We have seen how when cyclones came, women could, because of the dress that they wear, which is a sari, they couldn't run away or they couldn't escape. Or, when they were picking up 2 children, and the valuables in the house, which is like your Aadhaar card or whatever that you think is very important, and trying to, go. So, which all puts an additional burden. Apart from that, you will see that there are other kinds of burden. The biggest one, like when we saw the Asian tsunami again, even in that we saw the almost 70% of the casualty were women and children. Because there was this problem of women, like young girls we know are not really taught how to swim. Because again, that's, if you look at rural areas or even in urban areas, you find that as much as boys, young boys would be encouraged to swim, learn how to swim, girls wouldn't be. Again, that's a social issue which when there is a flood or a disaster, you don't have the skill set. You've not been given the opportunity to learn the skill set which will enable you to withstand a disaster or to cope with a disaster or be resilient in terms of a disaster. So, so there's that aspect. Apart from that, the whole, I'm sure Jayati will be talking in detail about it. But beyond that, there is this whole thing of unpaid labor, that's there throughout. And we know that all this unpaid labor comes in the share of women and girls specifically across the country. Whether it's collecting firewood, whether it's collecting water, women spend umpteen number of hours in a day collecting, doing unpaid work, which is caregiving role. And in fact, statistics show that, the care sector alone basically amount to 12.5 billion hours of women's unpaid labor every day. So you do have all of these challenges, and we do see that all of this, we know again in agriculture, 60% of the agricultural labor is done by women, but how much of land is owned by women? In India, it is like around 13 to 14%, and globally it's around 10% of land ownership. So. Yeah, so we have seen how this has played out in times of climate change. And we all know that there are huge economic impacts of this climate change on women as well. Jayati will be kind of going in detail into it, but before we go in detail into it, I'd like to briefly, I know Jayati Ghosh doesn't need an introduction for anybody here, but still I'd like to share with you about Jayati. So she is currently the professor of economics and at the University of Massachusetts in USA. And before this, she's been teaching in JNU. She's been teaching economics in JNU for 35 long years. And apart from teaching, she's authored many books, almost 20 odd books, as well as she's written around more than 200 articles, on economics, development related issues basically. And apart from this, she has been an advisor to various state governments within the country, including being the chairperson of the Andhra Pradesh Commission on Farmers' Welfare in 2004 and the member of the National Knowledge Commission, basically, from between 2005 and 9. She is also basically the executive secretary to the International Development Economics Associates, an international network of development economists. She has also consulted for various international organizations, which includes the International Labour Organizations, the United Nations Development Programme, the UN Women, etc. and she has been a member of several international boards and commissions, including the UN High-Level Advisory Board on Economic and Social Affairs. Apart from that, we all know that in 2021 she was appointed as the WHO Council on the Economics of Health for All, and in March 2022 she was appointed as the UN Secretary General's High-Level Advisory Board on Effective Multilateralism. And as Vetri said, we've all grown up, in our college days reading the various articles and columns that she's been writing in all magazines, especially Frontline, So Jayati, I think I'll over to Kavita now.
Nada para ponerse.